right, welcome everybody. So this is the Veteran PCS. This is a state of the market brief or like info session, really. So this is going to be really designed for people that are buyers or sellers, really no matter what base that you're going to. So we've got a few agents on here that are, going to be talking about some of the trends that we've seen in our respective areas, but really as a general information that can be used for any base that you're moving to. So if you are buying or selling in the next, few months, 6 months, potentially even a year, this could still be pertinent. We'll be doing these about every quarter. So anyway, Veteran PCS, if whoever's watching this, if you're new to that, this site was just designed and built in 2021 as a way to just feature veterans and military spouses that are real estate agents across the country. So every agent on there has personally PCS, has been part of the military. They understand what it's like. They know what it's like to move with the military. And then it's built and designed to help support their businesses as well. So it doesn't have any monthly fees or anything like that for them to be on there, help support their businesses. And then you actually get a move-in bonus when you go through the site, connect with one of these agents. It's based on your home price. So you can see more on veteranpcs.com. But you get a move-in bonus check, one of these giant Veteran PCS checks after closing that you can use for moving costs or, any of that stuff. And then another portion gets donated to a military-focused charity. So our whole purpose, and our mission statement of Veteran PCS has been military families helping military families move. It's keeping it within the community, again, helping to support the military families that are moving, whether you're active duty or if you're former military, and then supporting the veteran and military spouse businesses that are agents and lenders to connect. And again, our vision is really moving with a mission. So instead of just going through the kind of your ordinary move, this is doing more. So you're actually helping to support veteran and military spouse agents as you move, and you're also being able to help military focused charities when you're doing what you need to do anyway. So again, veteranpcs.com's got a ton of more information. We'll go around and just kind of introduce the agents that we have here and certain locations. So I'm Jason Anderson. I'm the founder of Veteran PCS and also work as a real estate agent here in Colorado Springs. So I was Army veteran. I flew Apache helicopters for a number of years, got out from Fort Carson and stayed here in Colorado Springs. And now work as an agent, and I'll be talking over some of the trends that buyers and sellers need to know in this area. Morgan, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Morgan Green. I'm a 20-year retiring Army officer, infantryman, and special operations command guy. Currently based out of Nashville, Middle Tennessee, servicing the Nashville area, and Clarksville, where Fort Campbell's located.
Great. Allie?
Yeah, I'm Allie the agent, or Allie Garced. I am a major stationed in Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, Tucson, Arizona, a couple hours from the border. Been here for a couple of years, and we'll be separating from the Air Force in 6 weeks to be a full-time realtor, which I already am. But then I'll only be focused on being a realtor.
Great. Good. And MJ?
Hey everyone, so I'm MJ Mata, and I was a military brat and 11-year active duty Air Force spouse, and I am now a realtor here in the great state of Alaska, outside the gates of Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson.
Great. Good. Okay, so I'm going to talk just some brief stats, and again, these are from Colorado Springs, and but this is fairly common from what we've seen with house price trends and days on the market over the last about 4 to 5 years. So here in Colorado Springs again, so 2017 interest rates, are around like the 4% range or so. And now what we've seen, 5 years later after this big dip, we're starting to see them in like the low fives, mid fives. So interest rates higher than what it was. In 2017, the median home price here was $275,000, and houses were on the market for about 5 to 14 days on average. 2018, home price went up to $315,000, same time on market. 2019 up to $330,000, so not a huge increase, same time on market, still around that 4% interest rate. 2020 is when rates started to drop into the threes and then into the twos. So we saw it jump into 375,000 for the median home price. Average days on market was around 4 days in 2020. 2021, home price jumped up another 50,000 to 425,000. And the average home price was around 3 days. So that's when things were super hot. The list price to sold price, it was about 3 to 4% over. So that's when, people were having to do 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, sometimes 50,000 or more over list price, is because the interest rate had dropped all the way into the low twos. People were qualifying for way more purchasing power for a house. And that's where these bidding wars and stuff like that came in. Once the interest rate started to increase again earlier this year, it's gone up from that like high twos all the way up into the low fives now. And what we've seen, so in 2022 here, the home price peaked at 490,000 as the median home price. And now it's come back down a little bit to 465. So market has not crashed by any means. The average days on market has just gone from like 3 days to back to like 10 to 14 days on market. So it's not like a crazy high interest rate or anything like that right now. Again, 5 years ago, it was around 4%. Now it's in the low fives. So it's not a good interest rate by any means. But there's still techniques and expectations for buyers and sellers to know. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about, that again, through some of these different areas around the country. That's a pretty good estimate for any base that you're moving to. Now, this, isn't completely accurate to whatever base people are moving to when you watch this, but should give you a good estimate of how home prices have increased over time, how they've dipped a little bit recently, and then what to think if you're a buyer or seller. So we'll start with sellers. If people are selling, again, now in the next 6 months, something like that, what are some just expectations would you have for people that are considering selling, and some techniques that they can do to make sure that they still get a really good price, make sure that their home doesn't sit on the market for a crazy amount of time, like 30 days, 40 days, something like that. So Morgan, you want to start?
Sure. I'll just talk a little bit about expectations, because I think our trends here in Middle Tennessee largely mirror yours, right? Nashville home prices and so Davidson County, Tennessee, and then I'll talk about Montgomery County, Tennessee, where Fort Campbell's at. Both of those from our data seem to have peaked in the May-June timeframe, and we're seeing a slight decrease now in the median sales price. So what that means for the sellers, at least here, is it's still fairly competitive, but you're not seeing you've seen days on market tick up a little bit, like you said, by about 7 days, not crazy. But what it means is don't expect the all cash, over ask, quick close, waiving of appraisal, and no inspection contingencies, right? Like, we're back a little bit more. It's not a buyer's market by any stretch, but we're back getting a little bit more balanced, where buyers have a little bit of time. They can get an inspection, and they can make a strong offer and have some negotiating power. So I guess what I'm saying is, sellers, it's if you're pricing your home like we were just this spring, at least in Middle Tennessee, in the March through May, June timeframe, that market has seemed to have passed. So you have to recalibrate your expectations a little bit.
Great. Allie, how about for you down in Arizona? What are you seeing, and what would you recommend for sellers?
Yeah, absolutely. For Southern Arizona, we go from the MLS is from in between Phoenix and Tucson, like that middle area, all the way down to the border, from California down to or out to New Mexico. So it covers a really big area. My specialty, mainly who I work with is military buyers and sellers, and they therefore tend to stick to Tucson specifically. So the Tucson days on market is 18. However, majority of my buyers and sellers have single family homes that are like 3-2, the standard, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. So the days on market there is actually 15, which it hasn't really changed too much. I feel like other parts of the country are moving a little bit faster toward it becoming more of a buyer's market than it is here in Tucson so far. For sellers specifically, I agree with what Morgan said, pretty much same thing. Sellers, first and foremost, should be working with an experienced agent that knows how to list their property accordingly. That's like the number one thing. Like long ago are the days of putting a house in the market and it's setting a new trend. There's no more like trendsetters. Now you have to actually use comps and use a realtor that uses comps to list it appropriate. Like that's like number one. Number two, definitely work on good photos, like professional photos. And there are a lot of professional companies. Some are better than others. So working with a good professional photographer, making sure that you take care of these little like ins and outs of the property, making sure that the landscaping is good, because that's the first thing people are going to see when they show up is, it doesn't have a lot of weeds. Taking care of the weeds, painting it. Painting is so important. You can know, essentially what I'm trying to say is you can no longer just list a property and get more than what you expected.
That's great. Good. How about MJ? What are you seeing for sellers and some techniques or some expectations and what they should know?
We're definitely seeing the same here in Alaska. And I do agree with Morgan and Allie as far as pricing it appropriately, especially in the state of Alaska. So we are what's known as a non-disclosure state. We do not disclose our sales prices publicly. Our municipality doesn't know, our borough doesn't know, Zillow doesn't know. So without the guidance of a professional real estate agent that has access to that sales data, you're at a loss. So the FSBOs, it's very difficult out here for FSBO, for sale by owner, for those who don't know. So just again, reiterating that it is so critical to work with a professional agent, especially here in Alaska. So my advice to sellers is, just be realistic. You and the buyer have the same goal at the end of the day. You want to sell your home. They want to buy your home. So working as a cohesive unit and having those realtors that are representing you working together to reach that end result is so important to your sale. Being realistic about the value. So we're just like the rest of the lower 48. Our prices have started to come down just slightly. So there's no crash by any means, like you mentioned. So our prices have come down slightly to the point where we are at historic highs for price reductions. So that alone just tells you that we're not in the bubble anymore. You need to be realistic. You need to take that realtor's advice about what the market has been doing and what that realistic expectation is, because the higher you set your price out of the market, the longer it's going to take you to sell the home. And those days on market are a red flag to people. If they see that home has been sitting on the market for longer than the market norm of about 2 weeks right now, they're going to think something's wrong with it, even if it isn't. And it could so much as deter people from even opening the door and coming to see it. So again, just being realistic and working together with the other side, if you will. We all have the same end goal. You want to sell, they want to buy. Let's work together to make that dream come true for everybody.
That's great. Okay. So one of the things, and this is really for sellers and buyers, but want to touch quickly on this concept of seller concessions, because this is very new. Over the last 2 years, it was kind of unheard of to have seller concessions and sometimes even inspection items. So, I know here in Colorado, we have a lot of houses that have radon gas. So having a radon gas inspection when you're going through your home buying process is really important. And also a sewer scope. A lot of homeowners may not know that they own that sewer line from their house all the way to that city sewer area. So if that line is cracked or if there's something wrong and that's found on inspection, then again, we can get into this negotiations during this home buying process. That's where your agent comes in. And a lot of times the seller may have to cover that. Sometimes there's negotiations there, but those are some of the things to understand now in this market where it's a lot more of a balanced market. Make sure that you're getting these inspections done, because now that that this market is balanced, there's a lot more room to negotiate and not just buy a house, waive the inspection, do all that stuff just to get a house. Again, you can go about it smartly, work with your agent to understand that. So seller concessions is something that we've seen up in Colorado Springs be a little bit more common. And it sounds like that's been fairly common is that the same for Tennessee, Arizona, and Alaska?
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, it's a little bit too early to tell, but I know, at least from the experience of what I'm having, but I do know, especially if the seller has overpriced their home, and like MJ said, the days on market start to tick up, you're starting to be in a better, the buyer starts to be in a better situation to be able to offer some seller, or to ask for some seller concessions. And I do know, like, the inspection piece has come around, right? Like, I don't think before, at the peak of the market here, waiving inspection was common, not advised, but common practice. And so I think that's normalizing, and that, the normal 7 to 10 day inspection period, I think is somewhat expected. But I haven't seen or heard too much of seller concession, but I'm going to give it a try with a current client that I'm working with that's trying to get some closing costs covered. So at least enters into the discussion at this point, which is an indication of kind of where the market is.
Yeah. So just to kind of help understand seller concessions, what that is, it's money that can be used or would be used. It can't just be used for anything, but it can go towards closing costs or buying down the rate for the buyer. So again, now that it's more of a balanced market, I've used it or seen it a couple of times to where if the house really needs to sell, or if there's, in this negotiations with the VA loan, most people know you don't have to have any money down to use the VA loan. That's one of the amazing benefits of it. But there's still closing costs. And those can range anywhere from, I've seen as low as like a few $1,000s up to 6, 7, sometimes higher, thousands of dollars to close on a house. So having seller concessions of $3,000, I've seen $5,000, I've seen some houses offer up to $10,000 of seller concessions that can go towards covering closing costs. It can help to buy down the interest rate right now. And that can be an area of negotiation. So for sellers, expect that may come into the picture, or a buyer may ask for that. And if you're a buyer, understand that that's something that you could potentially use. If you talk to your agent and figure out how to negotiate that, it could help you significantly reduce or completely eliminate a lot of the cash out of pocket in order to, buy this house that you want. So different across different areas. Some areas that's common, some areas it's not, but it is one of the things that we're seeing come back now that there is more of a balanced market. So transitioning to buyers, what are some other things, or maybe some other things that we haven't touched on that buyers should understand, or maybe techniques that they can use, again, like seller concessions? What are you seeing for buyers out in Tennessee area, Morgan?
Yeah, just really quickly, the biggest thing still for us is you got to be pre-approved. Every offer, just about every offer, is still a pre-approval offer. So before we start looking at homes, I'd encourage those serious buyers to get pre-approved and be able to focus in on what we're going after.
Great. Allie, anything that you're seeing different or that buyers should know in this market?
Yes, absolutely. Here in Tucson, at least with the buyers that I've been working with, I have gotten them seller concessions on every single one for the last 5 months. I just had a closing yesterday where their VA loan, so no down payment, and their closing costs were so minimal, and they gained $18,000 in equity just by closing. It's becoming super, super, super common, where I'm seeing it now in the MLS, where a lot of sellers, closer to more so seller advice right now, sellers are enticing. They want more traffic because they're not getting the same traffic that they used to get a couple of months ago, 6 months ago. Therefore, not only are they announcing in like the agent notes that they will pay for to help buy down the buyer's interest rate, but they will also slap on an extra $1,000 for the buyer's agent. So buyer's agents can see that. Obviously, it's in the MLS. So it helps out the seller because yes, they'll have to pay another $1,000 for the buyer's agent, but how much more attractive is that property now to everyone than as opposed to just the regular commission rate? I don't know if other states can do that, but in Arizona, or at least in Tucson, that's definitely what we're seeing. And even though the prices now I am offering right below list price for the most part, as long as it's, appropriately priced. But that seller concession, man, that is big. If they can help you like buy down your interest rate, which by the way, we're 5%, 5.5 is still so low. So yes, it's high compared to last year, but it's still over the course of time. I mean, what inflation's at like 9%. It's free, like at least that's the way I think about it. So it's all about working with a great agent, like I said before, both on the seller side, making a little bit more incentivizing to other buyers and the buyer's agents. And on the buyer side, you can be a lot more aggressive now. We are negotiating on all of the repairs. We're asking for everything now. Of course, not being like extremely nitpicky, because I care about my reputation. But the bigger ticket items we are definitely asking for, and we're getting a lot. A lot of HOAs here built like their homes about 20 years ago, so the roofs are now starting to have some issues. And where a lot of like roofers are coming out and saying that the roof life has a 1 to 3 years left, and we're negotiating 50% of the cost of the roof. The roof is working just fine. So it's really good for buyers.
That's great. Okay, good. How about MJ?
Very similar here. So as a former loan officer specializing in VA buyer financing, I am like gung-ho about that pre-approval. There is nothing worse than going out to see a home, falling in love with it, wanting to buy it, but you have no proof that you can buy it. The seller's not going to bat an eyelash at you in any market. It doesn't matter if we're a seller's market, buyer's market. If you don't have proof you can buy the home, you can't even write the offer and be considered. So that pre-approval is absolutely essential. I agree with Morgan on that for sure. And then also just for the buyers too, just like I mentioned for the sellers, being reasonable. So here it is very common for us to ask for health and safety items. So, you have normal routine maintenance, deferred maintenance items, things that just go along with the natural upkeep of the home. But anything that is considered health and safety is really important to ask for and to negotiate, because you want to ensure the home is safe, sound, and habitable, meets the MPRs of, the VA appraisal rules as well. But again, just being reasonable, because if you are coming in below asking price, or you are asking for those seller concessions, to tack on a whole bunch of repair requests on top of that could essentially kill your deal. So you want to be reasonable in that matter. And then we are seeing a lot here in Alaska when the rates increased. And just like Ali said, the rates are fabulous, guys. They are absolutely amazing still. There's nothing wrong with where the rates are. They were just had historic lows a couple of years ago, or just last year, I should say. So we are seeing, with the rates having increased, buyers' buying power has gone down to the point where we are seeing a ton of these homes come back on the market at this point. So don't be afraid of homes that have come back on the market. Do your due diligence, have your realtor find out why it went back on the market. And if it had anything to do with buyer default, it could most likely be that their buying power no longer supported the purchase price of that home. So you have an opportunity to potentially see a prior home inspection, already know what you're walking into before you get through that due diligence stage. There may already be an appraisal in place. So that could expedite your closing time as well. So don't be afraid by homes that have gone back on the market. Have your realtor pick up the phone, ask the reasoning behind it. And if it was buyer default, that could be your lucky day. That dream home has come back on the market. You qualify, whereas the previous buyer no longer does. And that's your ticket in. So don't be afraid of what you see on the market. Do that due diligence. And if you love it and it works for you, then pursue it. You deserve it.
That's great. Good. Okay. So we'll kind of bring this to a close, but all these technique, everything that we've heard on here, I mean, there's tons of takeaways between, buyers and sellers, a lot of stuff that people may still have questions on. So again, go to VeteranPCS. All these agents are on there. You can find Morgan in Tennessee on that page, and we'll link all these in the notes of this video. Ali out in Arizona, MJ up in Alaska. You can find them on there. As far as pre-approval, we started adding mortgage loan officers onto the website this year. They're all veterans and military spouses as well. They've all been interviewed. They've all been vetted, and none of them charge what's called this loan origination fee. So that can save you thousands of dollars that a lot of other companies may charge. So regardless if it's a VA loan or not. So anyway, this has been great. Again, this is, we're cutting this in September of 2022. This is the market update now. We'll do more of these to educate people. But I think biggest takeaways is that find a good real estate agent. So that's the whole point of this, is that all these different techniques and stuff like that, find a good real estate agent that understands these things and that can negotiate on your behalf if you're a seller or if you're a buyer. Incredibly important. Somebody that's understands the market, understands all these concepts, help you, in whatever situation you're in. So any last comments or remarks or anything like that from any of you?
No, thanks for having us on, Jason. Appreciate your support.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll do more of these. And thanks for plugging in today.
Thank you for the invite. It was nice to join you guys today.